Okay, hello. Welcome at the Cité internationale des Arts. We are very pleased tonight to welcome Alban Muja and Anya Harrison. This is the second part of a program we organize on October, dedicated to Venice Biennale. And so we built a program with former resident artists or curator at the Cité internationale des Arts who are this year in the Venice Biennale. We opened last week, and so tonight this is the Kosovo with Alban, who is with us. On Tuesday we will have another talk with Joël Andriano Mearisoa from Madagascar. On the 18th, we will have a third talk with Laure Prouveau and Martha Kirsenbaum around the French Pavilion. And we will close this program with Australia, with Angelica Mesiti on the 21st of October. So tonight, Alban, this is a great pleasure. You were in residency at the Cité internationale des Arts last year, and you just arrived this afternoon from Pristina. And Anya Harrison, you are the co-curator of the Pavilion of Kosovo in the Venice Biennale. And so you are with us to explain a little bit better about your project and the pavilion for all of us. Maybe some of you have visited the pavilion, but maybe some of you haven't visited yet the pavilion in Venice. So thank you very much to be with us, and I hope we will have a nice talk with you. Thank you.
Okay, I think thanks everyone for being here. I think we're gonna have a half Q&A, half conversation for about maybe 40 minutes, something, and then if anyone has any questions or wants to have a further conversation, we can open it up. But maybe what would be good to start with, because we started working on the Pavilion project about maybe a year ago, or sort of November last year, so it's been nearly a year that we've been working on it. And maybe to start with, Alban, you can talk a bit about what was the starting point for you thinking about this project, approaching it, because when we started talking about it, it was an idea that you already had in your mind and that you had already started thinking about even before Venice.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Cité, for inviting me, and especially Corinne, because she was dealing with me the last couple of weeks about the small show that we had in the Petit Gallery and the talk here. As well, Anya, that we collaborated since year, as you said, but very happy to be here together. To go back to the question, actually, just before I came to the Cité, like beginning of October, I got news that I'm nominated and I'm gonna represent Kosovo in this edition of Venice Biennale, which for Kosovo was for the fourth time, because it's most probably that you know that Kosovo is very young baby state. It's like only 11 years old, and only 20 years ago, 20 years since we got the freedom for the first time ever. So basically, for me, it was, of course, I was very happy to get to know that I was nominated to do Pavilion of Kosovo in this edition of Venice, but as well, I knew that there's responsibilities are as well quite big, because compared with other exhibitions, when usually you present yourself and your ideas, whether you represent, let's say, whole the country, or at least for that edition, because as most probably you know, usually, especially in Kosovo, but in most of the countries as well, that majority of the budget it comes from the tax base of the citizens of Kosovo. Yeah, I mean, I was here in Cité when I started working for the project. That's how I got to know the curatorial team as well, because we had two, like Vincent Honore and Anya Harrison, who is with us here. And we start developing the idea, the project. I have kind of initial idea what I'm gonna do. For all of you who were in the gallery there, you saw a few images there, and there is one in the left, image of myself when I was a refugee.
Should I do it?
Yeah, for all of them, when I've been there.
Keep talking.
Yeah, image of myself like 20 years ago when I was 18 years old, and when I found in my family album, which we decided together with, of course, in collaboration and all discussion with, long discussions as well with Vincent and Anya about the name of the pavilion, and we came to the conclusion that I think maybe this is the best name. We call it family album because this photo came from my family album, and probably after 18 years ago I went through all these images of that time of 1999, and somehow I want to do something with this image, but I have no clue what I'm gonna do. So I was going through this image without really knowing that I'm gonna do soon Kosovo Pavilion. So yeah, I'm gonna do something, but somehow since I experienced the war, I was a refugee as well, and somehow I wasn't sure if I'm ready to do something that it's gonna be more emotional than, let's say, project or research based. And after doing a couple of other projects which are related with more or less, let's say, political, economical, social transformation what was going on in Kosovo, but the region as well, even though because there were a lot of problems between the region, but we have as well many other similarities. So I thought that now I'm ready that I can somehow do something with the past, or with something with this image.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything started here, and after
Maybe explain what the image is as well.
this image is like I am here next to the guy with the hat who happened to be that time Spanish Prime Minister, Jose Maria Aznar. That time he came actually to visit his, Spanish camp, which I was as well one of the refugees. And he came to visit especially my father because that time, just a few days ago, my father was released from the prison. That time Serbs would call prison, us would call more like as a concentration camp because they would collect during the war all the men they would put there. So when we heard that our father was alive and my brother is somewhere around, somehow after a couple of attempts, we managed to escape from Kosovo to go to Albania as a refugee, and we met in this camp in Hamalaj village next to Duros, which was somehow convenient because it was very few meters far away from the beach. And Aznari came to visit Spanish soldiers, but as well people there, so he came to meet my father in our tent. And what I had always with me while I was a refugee for a couple of months, I had only family albums and one small camera that I was having with me always. So at that time I thought I want to have a picture with the Prime Minister. Never thought I'm going to do something with that image. So I did a picture of my father with Aznar, and vice versa, he did it with me. And like 2 years ago, I think, I found this image, and I said, yeah, one day I'm going to do something with that. And that's how everything started. So yeah, here we are, and yeah.
I think also just to add the slight irony of this image is that, of course, Spain is one of the only countries in the EU who still doesn't recognize Kosovo as an independent state. But so, yeah, that was I guess this is one of the starting points for thinking about this project, and for anyone who saw the pavilion in Venice, just out of interest. No one. One person, two people. Okay, good. We have one video we can play you afterwards. But maybe just explain a little bit. Does this work if I go up? No. So maybe just to give a bit of a context for the show in Venice. It consists of three videos that Alban shot. So I'm just like trying to deal with this at the same time. I'm gonna do that. Yeah, three videos that Alban shot, and you can talk about that maybe more in a second, but which are all also based on similar images that Alban had researched and found of photos that were taken of refugees during the Kosovo War in 1998-99, of people having to flee their homes, but specifically also of child refugees. And these were photos that were taken by international photojournalists for media like Reuters, for Washington Post, Time magazine, etc., and which were subsequently published and circulated kind of all over the world and became very emblematic of what was actually going on in Kosovo and the human cost of what was happening sort of during this conflict. And the videos that make up the project in Venice, which is called Family Album, as Alban said, it's three people whose photos were taken, like in the images that Alban had selected 20 years later, talking both about their sort of memories, or actually sort of oral histories and other people's memories of that moment when that photo was taken, their relationship to it, and how these images are also part of their own family albums, which is kind of Alban not wanting to work with his own family's image sort of directly, but finding other individuals who lived through similar sort of stories in similar contexts, and sort of looking at this idea of the production and distribution and circulation of images. And also what was important for us was thinking about how, what does it mean when your identity through an image is stolen from you, when you have no control over it anymore, and how do you reclaim that? So maybe how actually, because when we started talking again about this project, you, Vincent, and I, you already had these three particular images in mind. So how did you come across them, and why were they the three that you wanted to work with?
Yeah, I mean, when I had my image in mind, and I was talking with my family, I mean, but at that time I was 18 years old, and I remember everything. So somehow I thought it's more fair and correct that if I go beyond my personal or family story. So we collect in the beginning a couple of other images as well, like, but we decided that first we select 4 of them, and after we went to these 3, last one. So because this, as you said, like are very iconic images from Kosovo War, but especially from this part of the Kosovo refugee during 1999. For me, it was very important because this photos were circulating all over in the end of, 1999. But even though, like a few years later, still some are present around in not only Kosovo media but abroad as well. And for me, it was the biggest, let's say, challenge to decide which image I'm going to include. And when it came to this idea that these 3 images that you mentioned as well from very known medias, we're going to include. So I said, okay, now the challenge is how to find these people and what we're going to do with them, because I wasn't sure what kind of story they have. I wasn't sure if these guys are alive somewhere or where do they live. But through the people that somehow were dealing in the past, in 1999 and 1998, and Kosovo media, so I got to know and meet all of them. And yeah, the beginning went somehow that was more or less, I want to meet the elders as well, like to discuss with them about the experience because they remember what happened, those moments. But for me it was much more important to know what do the kids of that time know about these images. Idea was that to focus completely in this, let's say, more human project than to discuss where is the fault, what has happened, or to talk with older people. They probably would have much more hate because they experience. So for me, it was a key to discuss with someone who experienced but somehow doesn't remember necessarily. Or all the story, it was built like an act of memory through the information or through the information of the people or relatives that they have around. So when we decided that we're gonna do these 3 images, we went with a team to meet and we discussed in the same time like with family, separated, and as well with them. So just somehow to compare the information. So when I collected, of course, we recorded what do they say, because we met a couple of times, and for us very important to see like the story is the same one. And that's how we started. And when we worked almost a month with these 3, let's say, families, even though in the end we decided to work only with the kids at the time, because it was very important for me to see what kind of information they have exactly 20 years later, and how do they see these images, and how they see the similar images around the world that is going on now. Because I don't think it was very important for me, it would be only the same, only Kosovo case. Because even while we were showing, or when we had the opening, 9th of May, which happened like it was exactly 20 years ago when I was for the first time, and I hope the last time, a refugee. The same days are like similar stories going around the world. So for me it was very important as well, somehow to bring this voice, to bring this, let's say, problem to discuss. So not only one way, not only, let's say, Kosovo 20 years ago, but what was going on in the world right now as well.
Yeah, because actually when we started working on the project, I think it was much more visible in the media at the time as well, with all the stories of Central American families being separated, children being separated from their parents on the border of sort of the sovereign US states. You were seeing all those images in the media. Of course, I think images, in recent years as well, that we've all been seeing from around refugee crisis around the Mediterranean, and obviously, of course, like linked with the Syrian war and that sort of famous image of a little boy washed up sort of in Turkey on the beach. It's kind of similar images, and especially when it comes to moments of conflict, and also how images are taken of sort of individuals when they have absolutely, no control and sort of no comprehension of what is being taken, who's taking the image, that it's even being taken, and what happens to it afterwards. Because some of the stories that came out sort of through these videos of these young people sort of talking about actually when they first encounter their images as well. So Besa, for example, she was saying that she first encountered the image when she was in 3rd grade or something, and a journalist came to her school to interview her or to talk to her about it, and she had no idea what it was. Or Agim, one of another young man who first came across the photo when he was driving with his family on a holiday, and it was plastered on a huge billboard several years later.
Or the guy, or actually the siblings, when demonstration happened, one of the demonstration happened in 2004, and one of the journalists, Peter Turnley, who came to Mitrovica, but he had no clue how to meet him. So basically, he saw the poster of him in his car. So that's how they got to know with each, I mean, let's say with photographers, and that's somehow they got to know what happened that time. And because, as I said, from Besa, who was that time like 6 months old only, Agim 2 years old, and Yehona and Besim, we have seen in the picture like 3 and 5. So part for two of them that somehow they're, especially Besim, who somehow he said that he has somehow the story somewhere, but others, all the narration they built somehow from the stories that they got from the families. And yeah, I mean, as Anya said that with, for example, with Besa, which before I would say something would like be very good probably to show that video that we have. I mean, of course, we cannot show all the videos, but we, together with Anya, we decided that we can show one of the videos. And so more or less, that especially if you guys saw the images there as well, you kind of connected as well with the photo of the catalog.
Yeah, should I play video?
Yeah. So can we switch off the lights here? Yeah. It's like around 7 minutes video. Now. Yeah, less than 7.
Para se me vërrit me fshatin Bac, nëna ishte ndalë në shtëpinë e familjes së saj, aty ka pasur shumë refugjat të tjerë. Dhe pastaj unë e prej ftoftit nuk kom lëviz, edhe nëna ime ka mendu që kam vdek prej ftoftit dhe i ka rënë të fekët. Pastaj një familjare ime më ka mbështjell dhe më ka shtrëngu me pelena dhe më ka fut në furrë për pak sekonda. Dhe pastaj më ka nxjerrë, unë kom fillu me çaj, të gjithë refugjatët e pranishëm kanë ndarë tropim nga gëzimi. Kemi vazhdu me ecë, nëna tregon se kanë ecur në 24 orë, derisa kanë mbrit në fshatin Blac, dhe po ashtu për 24 orë tjera janë dalë në mal, nuk i kanë lënë me kalu, edhe po ashtu aty kanë qenë edhe 30.000 refugjat tjerë, po ashtu gjendje shumë të rëndë. Ka pas pleq, fëmijë, gra, nuk ka pasur ushqim tjetër përpos gurabia që ka qenë ushqim im, edhe po ashtu ai qëndron më shumë. Aty ka pasur gazetar të shumë dhe që kanë dashur me pasqyru luftën në Kosovë, përderisa po fotografonin gjendjen e rëndë të shumë refugjatëve. Ata fotografonin dhe nënën time me mua, duke pirë qumsh nga gjiri i saj. Pastaj nëna, ato në fakt gazetarët kanë dashur që me ma zbulu ftyrën, por nëna ime ka qenë shumë e lodhur, se që nuk ja ka vu veshin kërkesës të atyre. Atë ftoftë që ka qenë, e kam në një pelen në kokë. Për herë të parë e kom kuptu fotografin kur një grup gazetarësh teksa po vjoja klasën e tretë, erdhën për të më intervistuar, dhe pastaj e kom kuptu domethënien e fotografisë, edhe që jam unë ajo vajza me nënën e saj në fotografi botërore. Në atë foto shihem unë e mbuluar me një batanie të bardhë, dhe po ashtu ende qëndron tëne e batanie, e ruaj, është diçka shumë e veçantë për mua, pasi që me atë është tregu si një lloj historie, dhe është i vetmi sen që kam bërë gjatë familjes time.
So that's, so that's one of the three videos we have showing the pavilion, and actually maybe an important point to make why in the images that we've been showing here right now for this talk, we're only showing the videos from, so we're only showing the images from the actual work and not the original images, which although you can see them upstairs in the gallery, and it's something that we had a lot of conversations about whether or not to include the original photos that had appeared in the media in the 90s, which were taken of the kids. And in the end, we decided to only publish them in the catalog and to not have them as part of the exhibition space anywhere, and to not use them for any press, even marketing, communications purposes whatsoever, is in order to have a focus solely on the works here and actually giving back a voice to sort of these individuals, whereby in the original images that you see sort of from 20 years ago, they don't have that anymore. And again, sort of going back to this question of how do you reclaim one's own identity and one's story and one's history?
Yeah, actually, we discussed a lot with the team, with Anya, with Vincent, and all the team, if we should include the original images from the photos, and from the original images 20 years ago. But we thought it's very important that somehow, even the way how we installed the exhibition, maybe we can show image from installation, to make it kind of very personally, very, very personal, and very intimate in the way that if you are in front of the video, somehow kind of to create a kind of communication. And when you go through all the pavilion and all the videos, and which somehow we were right, because always the audience, after watching the videos, would come to us or to the people around the pavilion to ask where we can find the images, original images. So for us, it was very important somehow to make them as well, to research or to check for these images, and we always, of course, we direct them to the catalog or to they can find them online as well, because as we said in the beginning, these images are very popular. After a long discussion, so we decided to have a very minimal installation in the way, so very 3 big screens in the almost in a black box space. Even though it was not a box, it was a very long space in Arsenal. There was pavilion located, but somehow when you go there, you are totally focused in. It depends in front of which video you are, because even the installation or the sound came as well in that way that when you're in front of one video, totally the sound comes only like how do you call that, like shower.
It's kind of like a sort of a shower.
Speakers.
Shower speakers. I'm forgetting my English.
So basically, even when you see 2 other videos in the back, when you're in front of Besa, was the first video when you approach or when you enter the pavilion. So you would hear only majority, like let's say only the voice from Besa's videos. So idea with that we went kind of make it as, so when you finish the first video of Besa, you just face the second video, which are like siblings or Besim and Yehona, and you finish with Agim. So for us it was very important as well the way how we install it, of course always in conversation and collaboration with all the team, especially with the curators. So we decided to do it like this, that not to show the images. Idea was like to focus totally in what they say and totally in these 3 big video skills that we had. For us, it was very important because we thought their stories are very personal, and we as well should look at it that way.
And it's also about a question of consent as well. A question of consent at the end of the day. And also the reason why we decided as well to for Alban to shoot the videos in this kind of environment where they were shot in a theater in Pristina. So rather than shooting the videos in the homes of these people, of these families, or sort of finding another space to really just focus purely on the individual and on the words, and kind of almost even like we're thinking a bit about the format as well for history paintings as well, sort of when you look at them and you have kind of almost sort of no background and the focus is sort of purely on the individual. And actually when, I don't know if we talked about it before, but because obviously it was a kind of month-long, 2-month process of working with Besa, Agim and the others and sort of listening to their stories, but did you already have in your mind a kind of sort of image or idea of where these stories were going to go, or was it a kind of, you know, like it was developing as you were having these conversations with them as well?
From the day first that when we met them, I had someone who helped me, like taking notes and recording. And first, of course, we went always with families. So because we want to collect as much information that we thought that we probably don't know, and which was true, that we didn't knew most of the information, that we thought that we knew what was going on that time. Because we heard, I mean, especially I heard a lot about these images. So, but everything was fine and everything was somehow organized until when we started to shooting. So when we started shooting was like, basically we had no plan B. So we invited them all to shoot in one venue in a national theater in Pristina, because I thought somehow it's very important not to have a background, not to have a story in the image behind, but to focus in the what they say in the voice. And as I planned, or we planned together, like from the beginning, that to have this installation. Somehow I thought that I knew more or less how it's gonna look and what they're gonna say, but after we did the first shooting, which was the second video, you see here in the image, the siblings, we had a lot of unexpectation, like when we started, we did the second one. Because even that we worked like 1 month with all of them, we had no clue if we're gonna have a result after we're shooting, because I mean, probably they are known face from the images, but they never been in front of the cameras. They never experienced something like that. So basically, even that there probably were some journalists interviewing them, but the way how we wanted for them was very challenging in the way. So I remember one moment when just we thought that we are not going to have this at all. So we planned and we organized everything for a month, but when she was in front of the camera, she just couldn't say much. Yeah, but somehow we find the way, and we free the theater because there are quite a couple of people around there. Some of them helping, some of them working, and some of them families. So we empty the theater. We decided we were going to switch off the cameras, which we never did, and we decided to have a conversation again, as we did at the beginning when we met for the first time. So always when we had a conversation with them without having the cameras on, which we had always on, it went fine, went perfectly. So it was a very good moment, a very important moment, but a moment that was almost 10 minutes before. I had no clue what's going to happen. Or probably not 10 minutes, but after an hour, 2 hours, I was happy that, because I knew there were cameras on and we have the material. And I said to Besa, you see, we can do it. He said, yeah, we can do it when you have a conversation without cameras. I said, yeah, but it's already done, so we recorded everything. This was like kind of very switched, like, so now after the third video, I knew how I'm going to do it. So basically, shooting was very challenging. But after we found this thing, we found a way, and I think the result, we have what we have.
Actually, when you were first meeting with them at home and stuff, and also this like relates to your image as well, how and where do they have the original photos? Like, do they actually have them in a family album? Do they have them sort of presented visibly anywhere in their houses? Is it the original photograph, or is it kind of torn from a magazine? So what's the, like, how is it present in their lives? And also your photograph in your house, do you have it somewhere?
Yeah, actually this is all connected with my photo as well. Because we have probably a month discussion how we're gonna call the pavilion. We have a couple of ideas. I think I'm gonna save all of this for other projects, because I think they're amazing titles that are proposed by curators. Yeah, I mean, always when we met, I mean, when we discussed with them, and they have like everything, too many stories around these images. So that's how we somehow came to conclusion that this project should be called Family Album, because all of them somehow kind of they agree, even though they don't know each other, that this is the image that from that we started everything from that. It's the most important image of their family album. They said we want or not. It's not because we decided, not because we choose, but I mean this album, a photo, that image that somehow made us unknown and recognized, not only as a family, but the cows of Kosovo as well. So basically, and I came back home and I said, yeah, actually, I think the same, even though I never knew that this is probably, I'm not saying a favorite, but probably the most important image of the family album. So they have two of the three videos that they have original images sent after a while from photographers. Two of them they were met already photographers, because just to inform you, these photographers who did this images during Kosovo War, they're quite known. So as Anya mentioned before, one of them she worked that time for Washington Post, another one for Getty Image, another one for Reuters. So basically, they were very important people in this photojournalism. So basically, they met them after a couple of years, and some of them they have as well original images, and for example, Besa collected a couple of images from the magazine and newspaper, because even now they are still, whenever it's discussed about like anniversary of Kosovo War, anniversary of Kosovo freedom, then you see these images circulating all around the medias. So, but circulating discussion only like, even when they met them, the discussion was like that when it was done, who did it, that's it, never went beyond that. So when we met them, they said, look, I think we're going to do something else. And because we are meeting journalists, or at least they're trying to call them and meet them very often. So yeah, I mean, if you go to their house, two of the three families, they have like hanging in the family in their living room.
Yeah, I think the title also can, for us, reflects sort of a move, sort of a change in register to a much more personal and sort of a private one, and kind of moving away from this, from these images and this idea of economy of images and sort of circulation and sort of monetary and economic value that these images have, because they say, these images are constantly still often reprinted, they're sold for money, etc. And in the end,
very often like published in pirate way as well.
I'm sure as well. But then they also end up actually in a much more sort of personal, private space where the stories, that like the individuals sort of gain back their identity, sort of their names and their personal stories. Is there anything I want to say? Does anyone have any questions, maybe, actually, or want to say anything?
I can give you a microphone. Well, until somebody decide to ask or comment or. Showing these three videos separately in the way that we showed today, one of them, we decided to show the shortest one. And this is the first one when you go to a pavilion there. I think it's completely different feeling, because I got some few emails that they were asking, maybe we can show to the film festivals or video festivals, but I think it's completely different feeling if you see three of them in one space. So especially in the space, how we try to organize and create the space, because we were working for more than 6 months in triangle between Pristina, where me, Commissioner Ortagoni, and Angel, who was a coordinator, and some other people were helping us, especially in production, because especially production team was quite big. Anya Nielsen in Montpellier, and we published a book in Italy, so we were working constantly in this triangle and circulating a couple of emails per day. But I think and that's how I see it, probably just because I was dealing a lot with that. But it's these videos, or this project, in my opinion, it's better to see as a whole project, as not like as each video separated and screened one after one in a projector or in a cinema or in a space somewhere else. So that's just in case if you happen to be in Venice project, it's exhibited in Arsenale, and most probably you know that, I'm sure most of them you know that in Venice you have two main locations of the pavilions, Giardini and Arsenale. So we are located in Arsenale in Sala d'Armi, second floor.
And I think maybe one last thing that's important to add is actually with the project and all of the stories that came through the videos, even though when you look at the sort of original photographs and start listening to the beginning of the stories, it's obviously taken in a context of war, conflict, displacement, sort of exile, separation, but actually all of the images, and you can see it very well in the image of you and Asnat, is actually very much to do with moments of reconciliation and joy and hope, because when those photographs actually were taken were usually moments when the families were reunited and found each other after being separated for months, sort of several weeks on end, and not actually knowing each other's whereabouts if they were still alive. So in a strange way, this kind of moment of conflict actually becomes a very sort of intimate moment of happiness.
It's funny because I was going through all these images because we decided to use that one with Aznar, but I have a couple of images. But when I was going through all this family album, I never saw myself like, let's say, nervous or unhappy. It was always super happy and smiling. So yeah, because in that time was just one thing important. Everybody was around, everybody somehow survived. So it doesn't matter what happened behind. I mean, of course it matters, but those moments. So, and as well, even you go to this, because we collect a couple of other images that even it doesn't matter what happened around, most of the time people you would see like, unless if something worse happened, which fortunately didn't happen to these three main images that all survived in the way, it's all the family. So basically this, let's say, we can call it kind of, after all this couple of men, displacement, the refugees and all the war, it was kind of a happy end that all survived, and it's easy now to communicate, because that's all actually, in the beginning I thought that it's very important to talk only with the kids, because the way how they tell the stories are more like a storytelling, not like something like kind of race hate or something like this. It's more that I thought it's very human. Yeah, I mean, if you have any question, because I don't know.
Otherwise we'll end maybe on this point of happiness and hope. Okay. Okay. I think we can, yeah. Okay, we can stop and we can have a drink outside.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.
I did it. Bye.